Hi, and welcome back to Focal Point on AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. You are listening to Focal Point, the home of muscular Christianity on conservative talk radio. Now, it's interesting that the press across the pond, the press in England, often will say things that the press in America cannot bring themselves to say. Now, what I believe is this showdown over these war memorials where President Obama is deliberately, intentionally, grotesquely going out of his way to prevent 91-year-old World War II veterans from visiting the war memorial in honor of the war that they fought. This is deliberate on his part. It is perverse, and it gives us a peek into his soul. And what we see there is a heart of darkness. Now, what Niall Gardner is a columnist at the London Telegraph in the UK, and he has a column today, and here's the title of his piece: Barack Obama looks like a bitter, petty, and partisan president. Do you know why Barack Obama looks like a bitter, petty, and partisan president? It is because he is one. And this showdown over these war memorials is absolute proof of that fact. It is juvenile, it is petty, it is mean-spirited, it is beneath contempt. And this is the commander-in-chief deliberately going out of his way to keep veterans in wheelchairs from visiting open-air memorials. And that's what you need to understand about these memorials. I've been to these memorials, the World War II Memorial, the Lincoln Memorial, Lincoln Monument. All of these things are open air. I mean, they're not gated. There's no gates you have to go through to get there. You can just park on the street or stop on the street or hop off the bus on the street. You can walk right up to them. There are no barricades. There are no fences. There are no locked gates. And this World War II Memorial, it is a plaza. It's an open plaza. And so if you are going to block people from getting to this thing, you have to make a point of doing it. You got to go out of your way to do this thing. Now, you got all kinds of monuments and memorials and stuff like that on the Washington Mall, all kind of places to visit. You got the Smithsonian, you got the Air and Space Museum and all that. Well, they're locked, but I will flat out guarantee you that they aren't barricaded. You got to go out of your way to barricade one of these war. It's got to be intentional on your part. And they're saying, well, we just don't have the staff. Because of these mean, wascally Republicans, we just can't afford to put park personnel, National Park Service personnel on duty. Well, they had National Park Police showed up. I mean, they were there when these veterans showed up. You had Park Police there with armed and everything, ready to arrest these guys and put them in handcuffs. Fortunately, some of them were veterans that said, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to put a fellow veteran who's 91 years old in a wheelchair. I'm not going to slap handcuffs on that guy and throw him in the bus. I am not going to do it. And so he allowed them to go ahead and visit these memorials. So where did these park police come from? I thought here we were told we got to shut this place down because those mean, wascally Republicans cut off all our funding. We don't have money to pay the National Park Service police, so we can't open the mall. Well, here they are, armed and ready to put handcuffs on our veterans. And then I've got pictures, looking at them this morning, pictures of National Park Service personnel with the yellow whatever jackets on, the blazers, what are those things called? The things you put, the vests, those yellow vests that workers wear, highway construction workers and so forth. And they're sitting there with forklifts and other pieces of heavy equipment putting these barricades in place. Well, wait a minute. Where did they come from? I thought government was in shutdown. I thought you said we had to shut down the mall because we can't afford to have people in place. Well, where did these workers suddenly materialize from? So it just makes you wonder how many lies we are being told about the central government. So anyway, here's what Niall Gardner says. He refers to the terms that President Obama and his, let me play let's play the Palazzo pieces first. Louis Gohmert, this is clip 1 and 2. Louis Gohmert from Texas, he was one of the 8 congressmen And I am so proud of the Mississippi delegation. I am so proud of Stephen Palazzo. We'll have him on at the bottom of the next hour. I am so proud of Alan Nunley, who's my representative. He was part of these congressmen that escorted these veterans into these memorials. So another big-time shout-out to Alan Nunley, my representative, for standing in the gap for these guys alongside Steve Palazzo. Big shout-out to Greg Harper, another Republican representative from Mississippi. He was there. Michelle Bachman from Minnesota, she was there. All of these are heroes in my book because they knew that they were risking arrest to do this. They knew that they had been told the park police are going to slap you in handcuffs and throw you in the D.C. County Jail or city jail if you do this thing. Anyway, here's Louis Gohmert this morning on Fox and Friends talking about his experience with Bill Hemmer. Let's listen, clip one.
Well, Steve Palazzo had a group of 85 to 98-year-old veterans that were from World War II. They were going to be out at the World War II Memorial. And Bill, it is a granite sidewalk. It's a sidewalk. They spent extra money to go find barriers to put up in front of these World War II vets.
Who was that?
So when Steve put the call, well, the Park Service, and I'm wondering, what are they going to do next? Hang a drapery over Mount Rushmore? I mean, this is ridiculous. So when Steve said he had veterans that couldn't get in, well, a bunch of us showed up, and we were out there, and, well, maybe I was standing at the front, and we all looked down, and magically the tape was parted and the barriers opened, and here came the bagpipe and the veterans in wheelchairs. And I'm telling you, Bill, I helped one gentleman up out of his wheelchair. He wanted to stand before a memorial, and he starts naming the islands that are engraved in the granite, and he starts saying, I was there, that was 7 miles wide, and he starts tearing and naming the guys that were there with him. And this administration thinks this is a political game. Let's close it up and make these guys suffer. I mean, this is outrageous. It's a sidewalk. Leave it open so they can enjoy it.
This is a lot more than outrageous. This is a peek, ladies and gentlemen, into the heart of darkness. And I use that term very deliberately. Now, here is clip number 2. Bill Hemmer, again, talking with Louis Gohmert from Texas, one of the real heroes up there on Capitol Hill. And I just love the way Louis Gohmert provides a legal basis for them to do exactly what they did. Catch this. This is brilliant.
I don't know. We have been checking with the Park Service. Thank God there are veterans in the Park Service. Not everybody knows the laws in the Park Service. We got some work to do there. But for those of us who voted to create memorials and have oversight over those memorials, we're authorized to go in and inspect them, even when it's a surprise inspection. Mm-hmm. And so we intend to be there to inspect and to get the people who could do the very best inspection in the world, and that is the World War II veterans that know all of those inscriptions, know the places, and represent the states that are engraved there.
They live an entire life looking forward to going to that memorial.
That's right.
As you well know.
We're going to be there with them.
Isn't that great? I just love that. That is brilliant. Hey, we voted for these memorials, these monuments, and we, as the people who voted for them, we have the legal right to perform surprise inspections on these anytime, unannounced. We can go and perform an inspection of these, and who better to help us inspect these war memorials? Who could offer more expertise to help us inspect these war memorials than the veterans who fought in those wars? Got to give Louis Gohmert some props there. And look forward to talking to Steve Palazzo, bottom of the second hour, more about this event. You heard Louis Gohmert refer to him in that soundbite. Now, again, back to Niall Gardner's piece about how Barack Obama is bitter, petty, and partisan. I didn't say it. Niall Gardner did, but I agree with it. He refers to some of the terminology that Barack Obama and his ilk, love that word ilk. I have no idea what it means, but feel free to work that into conversations over the rest of the day. Barack Obama and his ilk, the language that they have used in this debate over the shutdown. Barack Obama referred to the ideological crusade waged by the Republicans. By the way, I've got a new name for the conservative movement in America. Ted Cruz is now the leader of the Republican Party. There is no question about that. There's no doubt about that. There's no dispute about that. Ted Cruz is the leader of the Republican Party. This whole thing has happened for one reason and one reason alone, and that reason is Ted Cruz. So, and he's got a lot of followers now. I mean, I include myself among them. You're among them. We love Ted Cruz, love what he's done, love what he stands for. So the conservative movement now, I'm going to nickname it Teddy and the Cruisers. Remember that old Eddie and the Cruisers movie from the 1980s about a rock band, Eddie and the Cruisers? Well, the conservative movement is Teddy and the Cruisers. Little Eddie and the Cruisers in the background there. So Teddy and the Cruisers, conservative movement. Anyway, so Barack Obama is referring to all this inflammatory language that Barack Obama and Harry Reid used. Harry Reid called the Tea Party, that's you and me, he called us anarchists. Nancy Pelosi called the Republicans legislative arsonists. That's a criminal act to be an arsonist. Now, I understand it's a metaphor, it's a figure of speech. I'm not faulting her for that. That's fine with me. But it shows you literally the inflammatory language that they are using. That's pretty good. Inflammatory language, legislative arsonists. I just kind of stumbled into that. Even Al Gore, former Vice President Al Gore, accused the GOP of political terrorism. Here's what Niall Gardner says. The harsh invective, and by the way, they're getting shrill, they're getting angry. Now, what does that mean when they get shrill and defensive and angry and petty? It means they're losing and they know it. So take heart from this, gentlemen, and ladies and gentlemen. When they get shrill and angry and defensive like this, it means they are losing and they know it. Don't miss the significance of that. Here's now Gardner. The harsh invective flowing from Washington's liberal establishment has been nasty, juvenile, and petty. Ironically, President Obama turns the other cheek on the world stage when it comes to challenges to U.S. global power and has made the appeasement of America's enemies and strategic competitors into a form of art. And by the way, he had a telephone conversation with the president of Iran. You know what he said to the president of Iran? This is a guy that chants death to America. This is a guy that has said and believes that America is the great Satan. You know what Barack Obama said to him at the end of their conversation? He used a Farsi expression that means, may God be with you. So think about that just for a second. What Barack Obama says to the guy who chants death to America is, may God be with you. What Barack Obama says to 91-year-old vets in wheelchairs that want to visit war memorials, you're going to jail, pal. Focal Point, AFR Talk, back in 2.